William Somerset Maugham. Born in Paris on January 25, 1874, his father was a lawyer and worked at the British Embassy in France. When little Maugham was less than 10 years old, his parents died one after another, and he was sent back to England to be raised by his uncle. After Maugham entered the Royal College of Canterbury, due to his short stature and severe stuttering, he was often bullied and tortured by older children, and sometimes even humiliated for no reason by Dong Hung's pedantic people. The lonely and desolate childhood life cast a painful shadow on his immature mind and developed his withdrawn, sensitive, and introverted character. His childhood experiences had a profound impact on his worldview and literary creation. Maugham's name is a well-known name in the hearts of readers all over the world. This huge global influence mostly comes from a series of extremely popular works he created as a novelist, including the autobiographical Of Human Bondage, The Moon and Sixpence, based on the work of British painter Paul Gauguin, The Search for Pleasure, which alludes to most of the British literary world, even The Blade, which was created at the age of 70 and is based on the Austrian philosopher Wittgenstein. In fact, Maugham's entire life creation, including all plays, novels, essays, travel notes, memoirs, and even critical articles, all of these combined are still far less exciting than his life. In 1946, Maugham returned to the French Riviera. The Somerset Maugham Award was established to reward outstanding young writers, encourage and fund them to travel around. In 1948, he wrote his last novel, Catalina, which was set in 16th century Spain. In 1954, the Queen of England awarded him the title of Honorary Chamberlain, and he became a member of the Royal Society of Literature. In 1961, his alma mater, the University of Heidelberg in Germany, awarded him the title of Honorary Director. December 15th, 1965. On December 15th, 1965, Maugham died on the French Riviera at the age of 91. His ashes were buried at the Royal College of Canterbury. His life lived 10 of our lives. It is impossible to repeat one's life, but one can live wonderfully from now on. Let's get started now and move on to the excitement. Love is a very unfortunate sailor. You take one ride in the boat, and it pines away. Only the love that parents have for their children can be considered truly selfless. If a person is only interested in himself, self-control will be too easy. There is nothing more humiliating in the world than having to worry about your livelihood all the time. Most marriages, perhaps the vast majority, are unhappy. Remember, the things you do within your duties and the little effort you put in are not something to boast about. They are the responsibilities given to you, just like washing your hands when they are dirty. The only thing that is precious is the love of responsibility. When love and responsibility become one, you will be noble. You will enjoy an indescribable happiness. We are full of longing for life, but real life is so cruel. The gap between the two leads to the collapse of fantasy and hope. I know you are stupid, frivolous, and brainless, but I love you. I know your goals and ideals are vulgar and ordinary, but I love you. I know you are second-rate, but I love you. Some people say that there can be love without enthusiasm, which I think is nonsense. When they say that love can exist without enthusiasm, they mean something else: affection, kindness, interest, and habit. Everyone in their mid-20s seems a little silly, self-motivated, and acting like they're in a bad play. Of course, if this were not the case, by the time we are 50, we would not be so optimistic and wise about the world. The bestseller of a book may also be due to pornography. After all, there are still many obscene readers. If you are lucky and the publisher and author attract official attention and ban it, the book may have a surge in sales. If you love me, you shouldn't make me so unhappy. I do love you. Unfortunately, when a person wants to do what he thinks is right, he cannot avoid making others unhappy. People put on a mask that looks realistic, and over time, they actually become the person they pretend to be. But in the books he wrote and the paintings he drew, he revealed himself without any precautions. If he pretends to be bluffing, it will only expose his emptiness. The world is ruthless and cruel. No one knows why we are born into this world, and no one knows where we will go after we die. In life, we must not seek to be in the limelight or stand out, thus attracting the attention of fate. A woman can be crueler than anyone else to a man who still loves her, but whom she no longer loves. She is not only unkind to him, but also completely intolerant, and she becomes a ball of irrational anger. The end of life is like a person reading at dusk, reading and reading without noticing the dimming of the light until he stops to rest. He suddenly realizes that the day has passed, and it is very dark. He lowers his head to read again, but can't see anything clearly. The pages no longer have meaning. I won't look back on the past. The only thing that matters is the eternal now. Hypocrisy is the most difficult and nerve-stimulating bad habit that a person can seek, which requires uninterrupted vigilance and high concentration of spirit. It is not like adultery or gluttony that can be done in free time. It is a job that requires dedicating all one's time to. It also requires a cynical humor. In fact, the beneficiary's mentality of repaying kindness is much weaker than the benefactor's mentality of repaying kindness. When you hear young people talking nonsense with confidence and arrogance, and when you see him being dogmatic, paranoid, and narrow-minded, what do you get angry about? Why point out his ignorance? Have you forgotten that you were so stupid, arbitrary, arrogant when you were the same age as him? When I say you, I am of course referring to me. Just because a man deeply loves a woman does not mean that he wants to spend the rest of his life with her. The edge of a sword is hard to cross. Therefore, the wise say that the way to salvation is difficult. Taking myself as an example, my biggest hope is that others will not interfere with my affairs. However, I also found that not everyone hopes so. If I do not interfere with their affairs, they will think that I am cold and indifferent, selfish, heartless, and unjust. There is no point crying if the milk is spilled, because all the forces in the universe are deliberately trying to spill the milk. Emotions have reasons that reasons simply cannot understand. His preaching was most effective when he didn't know he was preaching. Few men learn to say no to women, and by the time they understand the intention of what women say, they are too old to do anything. People can't have the best of both worlds. They can't have both. If you want to do something good, you have to pay a price. It's hard to discover your own mediocrity, but it's too late. This is the cruelest thing. If a person has nothing in his pocket, he will become stingy, miserly, and greedy. Poverty will distort a person's psychology and force him to look at the world from a vulgar perspective. When you have to carefully calculate every penny you spend, money will become strangely important. There are countless people in this world. For them, life is just endless labor. It is neither beautiful nor ugly. The spring flowers, autumn moon, summer cicadas, and winter snow, the change of seasons seems to be just a glance of reincarnation. They grow old in this way in their lives. He was too young to realize that the giver of a favor would instead have a stronger desire to repay than the beneficiary. There is no such thing as beauty or ugliness. There is only truth. The pursuit of beauty is nothing but sentimentality. Society has three sharp swords, specially used to deal with people: law, public opinion, and the moral conscience in people's hearts. What will happen in the future? I don't think about it at all. If you think about today and worry about tomorrow all day long, what's the point of living? Even if things get as bad as they can get, I think there is always a way out. Surrendering to happiness may mean admitting failure, but this kind of failure is much more meaningful than thousands of victories. Life is an inescapable chaos. People are running around driven by this invisible force, but they have no answer for the purpose of doing so. They seem to be running around just for the sake of running around. Each of us is alone in this world. Everyone is imprisoned in an iron tower and can only rely on some symbols to communicate his thoughts with others, and these symbols have no common value, so their meanings are vague and uncertain. Despicableness and greatness, viciousness and kindness, hatred and love can coexist in the same heart without being mutually exclusive. Beauty is a gift from God, the rarest and most precious gift. If we are blessed with beauty, we should be grateful. If we don't, then we should thank others whose beauty brings us pleasure. Life is a difficult process. It is not easy for me to live a perfect life. How can I hope to teach others how to live a good life? There are two treasures in life. One is freedom of thought, and the other is freedom of action. If all I'm doing is sneering at each other, I'm not going to get anywhere. The greatest torture in the world is to love with contempt at the same time. I believe that the highest ideal a person can pursue is self-improvement. Chasing dreams is chasing one's own misfortune. On the street full of sixpences, he looked up and saw the moonlight. If your happiness is no longer so intense, then your pain will no longer be so heart-wrenching. Most people are not what they want to be, but what they have to be. God's millstone turns slowly, but it grinds finely. Why do agreeable women always marry stupid things? Because men with brains don't marry likable women. I tried my best to live an ordinary life. If you think about self-esteem when it comes to love, there can only be one reason. In fact, you still love yourself the most. As you grow older, you discover that to make the world a tolerable place to live, one must first acknowledge that human selfishness is inevitable. I really don't see the point of reading the same thing over and over again. It's just laziness disguised as diligence. The most lasting love is the love that is never reciprocated. If everyone only spoke when they had something to say, it wouldn't be long before humans would no longer be able to speak. The great tragedy of life is not that people die, but that they stop loving. People have to pay the painful price of experiencing disillusionment for their youthful aspirations for a better future. He who becomes discouraged at the first blow is always a loser. Sympathy and thoughtfulness are a rare skill that is often abused by those who know they have it. What is art? Art is an expression of emotion, and art uses a language that everyone can understand. The meaning of life lies in life itself, not in how you describe it. When you fall in love at the age of 20, you think it will be eternal. But when you are 50, you have seen through life in love, and you know that it is just a fleeting thing. As a person who falls in love, the difference between men and women is that women can fall in love all day and all night, while men can only do this kind of thing sometimes and for a while. You never know what kind of wildness can be hidden in the most decent woman. Perfection has a serious flaw. It can easily get boring. I wonder how much of the sincerity is posturing, how much of the nobility stems from baseness, how much of the degradation is holiness. There is only one way to win the hearts of people, and that is to make them think you deserve to be loved. Life was just chaos, full of all kinds of ridiculous and dirty things. It could only provide people with laughter, but he couldn't help but feel sad when he laughed. Any heartthrob moment is not easy, so don't neglect it. Only those who have no independent opinions accept moral standards, while those who have independent opinions have their own standards. I believe that in a plague, the number of people who die from fear is no less than the number of people who die from disease. Money can bring me the most precious things in the world without asking for help. It makes me happy to think that now I can tell anyone to fuck off if I want to. The hardest thing for a person to do is to realize that he is not the center of life, but only on the edge. Thinking that people of noble birth must look noble is just the understanding of the nouveau rich. It's impossible not to care about other people's opinions. Sooner or later, the human in you craves connection with others. Money is like a person's sixth sense. Without it, you cannot make full use of the other five. People do not ask for great wealth, but just enough to maintain human dignity without affecting work, generosity, straightforwardness, and self-reliance. Enthusiasm is a sign of lack of education. Enthusiasm is not gentlemanly. Enthusiasm means change. Geniuses have the spirit of hard work, and the most important thing is perseverance. To surrender is to admit defeat, but it is a defeat that is better than countless victories. If he finds that giving alms is a kind of enjoyment, then he is merciful. If he finds that helping others is a kind of enjoyment, then he is philanthropic. If he finds that working for society is a kind of enjoyment, then he is public-spirited. I don't think about the future. Life would be boring if I had to think about today and worry about tomorrow. Whenever things get as bad as they can get, I always find that there is always a way out. Poverty makes you so stingy and makes you suffer endless shame. It chops off your wings and eats away at your soul like cancer. The hatred aroused in a woman by the blow to her vanity is greater than that of a lioness whose cubs have been slaughtered. The greatest tragedy in life is not death, but the fact that they no longer have love. It is much easier to change good habits than bad habits, which is one of the great tragedies of life. It's good for you to enjoy something you really want. Conscience is the sentry in each of our hearts. It is there on duty to monitor us and not do anything illegal. If a man is unable to win a woman's love, it will be his fault, not hers. Even water can't extinguish the fire of love. If he loves her, he will soften his heart sooner or later, and he will be unable to help himself and continue to love her. The best way to understand how a man is thinking is to put yourself in his shoes. Sadness manifests itself in different ways in different people. As long as you have experienced poverty, you will always be a poor person in your heart. Whether you are working or enjoying yourself, you cannot find peace. Peace can only be found in your soul. In order to make the soul peaceful, a person should do two things he dislikes every day. People in general are not who they want to be, but who they have to be. We must always keep old memories and new hopes alive. What you need to overcome is your vanity and your desire to show off. What you need to deal with is your cleverness that always makes you want to rush out and be in the spotlight. If you marry a poor man, you will be responsible for his ignorance, debt, disaster, and all his evils and wrong thoughts. You will also be responsible for the ignorance, laziness, and chaos of his family. What will you be responsible for? You will be responsible for the price of your life, wealth, career, and future. If you worry about today, and worry about tomorrow, what's the point of living? When you can't survive, there will naturally be a way out. It turns out that a lot of my concern is just to find out how miserable your life is. Image must come before ability, otherwise your ability will easily be underestimated. The most effective way to make a person show his true nature is to ask him to take on a responsibility. No matter who you are in front of, as long as you don't owe him anything, there is no need to be submissive. Your weakness will only make the other person look down on you even more. Being soft-hearted and embarrassed will only kill yourself. Rationality and ruthlessness are the weapons of survival. If a man falls into the water, it does not matter whether he is a good swimmer or not. He has to fight his way out or drown. The necessities of life keep one on a straight and narrow path, on which there is no possibility of turning left or right. I've always believed that it doesn't matter what a man looks like. I'm more interested in a person's mind than his appearance. He taught that people are higher than they think they are, and that wisdom is the way to liberation. He taught that to escape from the sea of suffering, one does not have to become a monk, but only needs to get rid of the word I. The purpose of being a human being is nothing but to seek one's own happiness. Even if one sacrifices oneself for others, it is out of an illusion that the happiness one is seeking is generosity. It is not accurate to say that suffering can elevate one's personality. Happiness can sometimes do that, but suffering often makes people narrow-minded and develop a vengeful mentality.